Roger, thank you so much for joining us today. Firstly, congratulations on the passage of the infrastructure bill. I know it's something you and the team at US Travel have been working hard on for years. So, why don't you walk us through some of the key components that will really benefit the travel industry?
Sure. It was passed through the House on Friday. And like everything in Washington, they've got a tricky name for it. They call it BIF, BIF, which is basically the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework. And that's going to go to the president's desk for signature now. We finally stopped kicking the can down the road. There's never anything perfect with every bill, but this is a huge boon for the travel industry to really give us the infrastructure investment that is needed. And it really coming out of the pandemic is going to really map out the future for this industry, which I believe is going to come back stronger than ever, despite what some of the prognosticators say.
Going through some of the details, I think one of the things that I was excited to see was investment in railways. And when I think about the potential and perhaps a missed opportunity in the United States has been leveraging the potential for rail networks, especially from the consumer side. You and I in DC are used to hopping on Acela to get up to New York City, but across most of the country, that's just not an option. So how feasible is some more sort of areas of high-speed rail coming online in the coming years due to this bill?
I'm hopeful that that will get that going. $66 billion is in the bill for rail going to Amtrak, and it's going to focus on the Northeast corridor, which you and I know is the densest corridor. And if you can get high speed going there, I think it'll really set the tone for the rest of the country. And there's a lot of other things in the bill. I'll just go hit a few. 15 billion for airports, 110 billion for roads and bridges, 40 billion for bridge repair and replacement, something $11 billion called the Safe Protection Act or whatever. It's for senior citizens to make things safe for them and cyclists and pedestrians. There's also money in there, as I say, for airports, the ports of entry, $40 billion. So a lot of money that we've never seen before. And it is really going to be a game changer. As I said, no bill's perfect, but this comes a long way from nothing that we've had for the past decade.
In some ways, the federal funding is just step one, right? Because so much has to go through the more local legislative process and approvals at the state level, at the local level. And history has shown that some of these projects, even if they have funding on the federal side, don't actualize because they hit roadblocks locally. Can you tell us about kind of that process and what we might expect when it comes to actually getting these projects done?
Well, Carol, you've hit the nail on the head of one of the big problems. It's getting the zoning, getting the community approvals. Living in Washington, D.C., they basically approved the outer loop of the Beltway like 40 or 50 years ago, and it didn't happen. But I think this is going to be accelerated because there's going to be a lot of pressure to improve our infrastructure. It's the one thing in Washington that everybody agrees on has to be done.
What can the private sector do to maybe add a bit more pressure to make sure that they're doing their part to get this moving locally?
Well, I think one of the most important things is we worked very hard to get a job in this bill, and it's called the Chief Travel and Tourism Officer. And so that person will be now in the Department of Transportation, and that's the person we're going to work with. We've never had a go-to person before. It really just focused everything just on mostly airlines. So this takes it way beyond. So I think us putting priorities together, this person is going to have the job of meeting with the industry, putting the priorities and what are the programs that are going to make the biggest difference. But as I say, it's a game changer and it's a long time coming.
Is this going to be an appointed position or kind of a permanent staff position?
It'll be an appointment position is my guess, as many of the things are, and probably will become just like the people that are in the statistics area of Commerce Department, become a full-time employee.
Of course, your work is never done as the sort of central lobbying organization for the industry. What's next on the docket? What are some key sort of policy issues that we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, the key thing is we, on November 8th, We got international open. That again, that was a long time coming. We should have done it sooner, but tremendous pressure by the industry on the administration, and that has happened. Now, what we have to do is we've got to be sure that we have enough customs and border protection officers. We've got to speed up visa processing. From Brazil, it can take 2 to 3 months to get a visa. So that's a challenge. The visa waiver countries are going to be a real plus, but those countries where you need visa, we've got to get more technology. We've got to get more biometrics. So we've got to make the whole travel experience more efficient and more technologically supported.
Are there any specific initiatives that you know of that are kind of leading the way on leveraging technology to make some of that processing easier?
Well, a lot of it is in this bill, from infrastructure for internet, electric vehicles. We had a future of travel mobility meeting. Mark Royce, the president of General Motors, spoke, and you can't believe how quickly the auto industry is moving towards electric vehicles. So having charging stations is going to be very important, and also the biometrics to get people through airports. We cannot just have people looking at driver's licenses and call that security.
And from a sustainability standpoint, technology is really kind of going to be so critical in layering in the considerations for the environment that especially young travelers are really keeping top of mind as they make their plans. What have you seen sort of in terms of progress on that front?
I think we've made a lot of progress, and I don't think we talk about it enough. The things that are going on with hotels, the green savings programs, the more efficient airlines and cruise ships. And we need to talk about that more, because I'm telling you, two things are going to rear their head after the pandemic in a big way. One is sustainability. That's going to come out and be major pressure on the industry from a lot of young folks. And the other is going to be what we sometimes call over tourism or overcrowding. People have gotten used to not having people in their community. And now as the travelers come back and the visitors, I think you're going to get pushback of people saying, wait a minute, do we really want those tourists? So we've got a big job to do on sustainability and over tourism as an industry.
Along those lines, one of the things that I saw recently is about Venice introducing a fee for day visitors. Do you think we're going to see more of that happening across cities in the United States, where you're putting a paywall in front of things just to keep some crowd control and to manage some of that over tourism?
I think you may see some of it come in the form of a tax or a fee that would be tacked onto a hotel room or whatever. But one of the things that was an outbreak that was positive from the pandemic is Americans learned there's a lot more about America than just going to Florida, California, and New York City. They went outdoors. They went to the South Dakotas. They went to the Wyomings, the outdoor parks area. National parks were full. And I think that's one of the things that's going to be very helpful is we as a tourism industry spread out our visitors and show them there's many other experiences. And the last thing is, I think we're going to go through at least a year or two of Americans staying home. And they've got a lot of money. That's why leisure has done so well. Leisure is almost up to where it was in 2019.
What about corporate travel? I mean, I think this is where we're seeing some wild speculation in lots of different directions. Some people are saying corporate's going to pop right back. Others are saying it's never going to be what it was. What are your thoughts on the topic?
I think corporate is going to come back. We have a few headwinds we're facing. One is the chief financial officer at companies saying, hey, these folks haven't traveled and haven't gone to a meeting in 16 months, and look at how big our profits are. Do we really need them on the road? And then you're going to have the general counsel chime in. Yeah, maybe we don't want those people on the road. What if they get sick and their spouse sues us? We don't want that to happen. And then it's friends and family. So I think as an industry, we've got a job to do. Talk about successful meetings, talk about how safe they are. And we've got all sorts of studies. You are 100 times safer on an airplane than you are in a grocery store. But the traveling public has to know that. And I think what's going to happen, Carol, is what we saw after 2008. We've got empirical data that shows that those companies that got on the road after the recession picked up market share and never looked back. And those people that sat at home lost market share. And I think that's what's going to happen. Once people see their competitors gaining on them, they're going to push their people back on the road. And I think they're going to travel differently. I think the nice thing about what we're doing here, the Zoom meetings, while they're a pain, they've opened up the world to thousands of people that would never think of going to a convention. And I think what's going to happen, they're going to see the general session of the convention say, next year, I want to be there in person.
Well, let's certainly hope so. I know we're pressed for time, so I'll cut it right there. Thank you so much, Roger, for squeezing me in.
Anytime for you, Carol.